Well, hello everybody. This is John Feldt. Welcome to the National Corn Growers Association, FMC, Agricultural Weather Outlook. Well, over the last 7 days here, you can see in green, these are the areas that received the most rain, at least the rain days, and it's been a bit wet over eastern parts of the Corn Belt. It's been very dry over northern parts of the Corn Belt. It looks like eastern parts of the region, including Ohio, had about 3 or 4 days of rainfall. On the other hand, other areas up in the Dakotas, really 0 or maybe a day of rain was reported. Now, if we look at how much rain fell over the last 7 days, what we see here is the areas in blue is very light amounts of snow and rain, predominantly snow. And if we go over to the eastern part of the Corn Belt, we see the areas in green, and that is anywhere from around an inch up to 2 inches in parts of Michigan. More significant precipitation in those areas over the last 7 days. And some of this comes back to some of the storms that we saw at the very beginning of this period last week. And you're going to see we're averaging this out as far as temperatures go as well. I'll be showing that in just a moment. So precipitation, the percent of normal precipitation, what we have here is we have areas in red are areas that receive less than normal precipitation, and that area in dark red is actually well below normal precipitation over Minnesota, but it's really scattered. You see those streaks of precipitation indicating those thunderstorms early in the period, but overall pretty scattered type precipitation over the last week over the Midwest. I wanted to show you temperatures, and at first you might say, wait, this doesn't make any sense. It's been very, very cold with this blast of Arctic air over the entire region. But really what we're averaging out here are 7 days of temperature, and we really started out the period with mild temperatures, and then we had the Arctic air. So as I go through the week, we'll update this, and you're going to really see a lot more green and blue shades, maybe even some purple, indicating that temperatures are well below normal. Now, it's getting that time of year. We're getting some snow, and I will be covering that very extensively as we go throughout the year, the impact of snow on soil moisture recharge and the potential for some problems next spring, or else some benefits from the snow. But you can see here generally light snow as we would expect this time. With the cold air in place, the precipitation was light, so the snowfall was light. The blues are generally anywhere from just a dusting, that's that gray shade over Iowa, up to some blue, and that's a couple inches of snow, maybe a little bit higher here and there, but generally just light snow at this time. But it does cover quite a bit of the upper Midwest in that cold air. If you want to see how much snow fell over the last week, you can look at it here. The purple dots are maroon dots, that's 0 to 4 inches. So for the most part, snow is quite a bit on the light side. Now, there was a little bit heavier snow over parts of northern Wisconsin, northern Michigan, northern parts of the Dakotas, and you can see that's the yellow or orange shaded dots where there was a bit heavier snow. Okay, now I wanted to start off today's briefing talking about the current steering winds, and what we have here are we have two different segments of the jet. We have a northerly jet that extends over the upper Midwest into the East Coast, and that southerly jet. And when we have a split flow like this, we often get moisture coming in from the southerly jet, this jet that's coming in this region right here, and then we have cold air associated with this upper jet. Now, the Corn Belt, for this briefing, we're going to be influenced for the most part by the upper jet. So that's going to be cold weather that's going to be reinforced. But parts of the nation, parts of the lower Midwest, are going to be into that southern jet, and that's going to bring a mixed bag of precipitation. In wintertime, when you get a southern jet, a lot of times you do get mixed precipitation. And I wanted to show you on this satellite picture, this is a water vapor, and you can sort of track these streaks of moisture coming in from the Pacific, and that's that moisture. We're getting mid-level moisture coming in from the Pacific into Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, and as far north as Missouri, and when it taps into the cold air, touches the cold air, we do get some mixed precipitation, rain, snow, maybe some freezing rain, and even some sleet. Now, I wanted to show you late this week, the southerly jet branch does tend to break down, and then we get another dip in the northerly branch, and when we get these dips, and you can sort of see the wind speeds here, the shading of stronger winds again in the jet stream level, that will reinforce the cold Arctic air. So I really think that's a story of today's briefing for the week, is a reinforcement of cold Arctic air. It's starting out, it'll moderate just a bit, and then it's going to be reinforcing again late this week. Now, but we're going to be in the upper jet over the most of the Corn Belt, and that's not necessarily a heavy precipitation. I did want to show you some of the watches and warnings when I'm as of the time of this briefing, and you can see that's pretty classic with that southerly jet. The purple is a winter storm warning. The pink is the winter storm warning, the purple is the watch, and you can see in that region, that's that moisture, and that is tapping some of that colder air. Now the North Atlantic Oscillation, that's sort of a cousin of the Arctic Oscillation I talked about. I'm not sure if it's really behaving in a classic manner over the last couple weeks, but you can see this is where it's been positive, and now it's dipped down negative, and I think that's reflecting that there's somewhat of a northerly jet that's active. It's dipping down to the south. We're getting more magnitude with that, and that is bringing that colder, those waves of colder air. I'm going to be talking a lot about the oscillations over the next couple months, so if you're new to these briefings, don't worry. I know you probably haven't heard this a whole lot, but my newsletter going out in about a week, I will be talking about this, and I'll be explaining it as we go. Generally, these are imbalances in atmospheric pressure, and when you get that, it gives me some clue as to the future patterns of temperature and precipitation. When the North Atlantic Oscillation goes positive, we tend to get warmer weather. When it dips negative, we have colder weather, but there are a lot of exceptions to that. So if we look at the precipitation forecast for the next 7 days over the Midwest, we see a pretty quiet pattern. Now, that doesn't mean that we're not going to have fronts pass through. We are, and they're going to reinforce the cold air. But generally, precipitation will be light. Now, there is the chance of some snow over parts of Iowa and then into the Great Lakes region. And if it is impacted by some lake effect snow, it could be somewhat significant, but that will be localized. For the most part, over the Corn Belt this week, it looks like a fairly quiet week as far as precipitation, but a more active week as far as the transport of colder air into the region. Now, I wanted to look out at the next week, week 2, December 1st through 7th, and actually the shades of orange here are dry weather. Shades of green are wet weather, and it looks like a continuation of this pattern from, say, Texas into the southeast U.S., trending towards the wet side, most of the Midwest trending towards the dry side with reinforcing cold air. Now, if you look at soil moisture changes, this time of year, don't get too hung up here on the real light shades, because that can change a little bit either on the dry side or moist side. But really, from a national scale, it looks like the only area that is really vulnerable to significant changes in soil moisture look to be the southeast U.S. Elsewhere, including most of the Midwest, it looks like just modest changes one way or the other. The outlook December 2nd through 8th just sort of reinforced my point here. Much of the nation, including the Midwest, looks like it's expected to experience below normal temperatures. This will head into early December. And I think the core really does look like this pattern of the upper Midwest, the Dakotas, parts of Minnesota, maybe into Nebraska. That's going to be the cold core of temperatures below normal. Also, that looks like where it could be some precipitation picking up in that region. Elsewhere, it looks like precipitation should be generally close to normal. So the takeaway points for the Corn Belt: continued below normal temperatures and precipitation into early December. It does look like that upper Midwest into the Great Lakes states could have a bit more precipitation. The southern part and the central part of the Midwest will be trending towards below normal precipitation. Now, I hope you all have a great Thanksgiving. I will be issuing information from time to time throughout this week. If you ever have any questions, you can always email me at john@bluewateroutlook.com. Thank you for listening to this week's Agricultural Weather Outlook. I will be talking with you again next week.